Thanks for staying with us. It's Workers' Day, and we're still talking about workers. We're discussing the consequences of working here in Nigeria and working abroad, and we're trying to compare and contrast. We're still going to talk about, would you rather work in Nigeria or work abroad? We'll come to that in a minute. Ramatu, what are your thoughts about working conditions?
So consciously, like the time factor she mentioned, consciously in Nigeria here, that time factor is really a problem, because there are times that they'll tell us that this is the time they are going to start an event, and by the time you get to the event at that particular point in time, you find out that a lot of people are not yet there. So consciously, you just, adjust. So next time when they invite you, you definitely go late, because you know that anytime
this time thing that you guys talk about, let's leave parties out of it, Ramatu. Let's about work. Let me, I'll come back to you. This work matter. In Nigeria, if you're running late, you can call your boss, or you can even tell them, I'm not feeling well, and they will understand. Abroad, they can't do that nonsense. So the timing thing somewhat works for us. Okay, if I'm late, or if your work starts at 8 o'clock, and you're strolling at 8:15, the boss might not count it against you. They just look away. I think he has resumed. Abroad, you dare not. So that's it. The lateness somewhat can help you here in Nigeria. They won't penalize you in Nigeria, because your boss will see you strolling at 8:05. Abroad, they will penalize. They will deduct it from your money. But here, they don't. So there are always pros and cons.
Yeah, go ahead. Okay, so another thing is like what Miriam said. There was this thing I saw on Twitter in Chinese, like after a while they are walking, there's this bed under they can convert their seats to bed, then they just take a nap. So at times when you are walking, there's that time that you be feeling sleepy and you want to just relax.
Depending on the kind of
company, it's time. Not all companies.
Yeah, so that should also be looked at. And then another thing I struggled with when I was working was it's eye service. I couldn't leave the work. I could not leave my work until my boss leaves the office. So every time, sometimes the bosses will stay till like, much later. So I have to wait. And that time I worked at a papa. So you can imagine, and I stay on the island. So I'll have to wait for my boss to leave the office before I leave the office.
But I'm curious, like, why couldn't you leave? Was there a rule that you could not leave?
It was an unwritten rule. Absolutely correct. Unwritten rule.
So you can't leave. Then there's so many other things in that plays even while you are working. Then when you are doing something and the boss comes and you just stand up and start pretending you are not yourself. You are not yourself in your place of work. Immediately he passes, you now start doing as if you are working. Immediately he goes, you just carry your phone and
But that happens abroad too. That happens abroad sometimes. I'll tell you, I'll come to you, BC. Let me take this call. Adebayo has been holding for a while. Good morning, Adebayo. You're live.
Yeah, good morning.
You're live. Yes, go ahead.
Good morning. Yes, I just want to add my view to what you guys are discussing. Very well done. Thank you. God bless you. There's only one message I want to pass across. I'm a preacher of national identity. We have our own culture. Even within Nigeria, we also have some culture. For instance, the other lady that spoke that was raised in the east, that came to the west, Lagos to work. In Lagos, this is a Yoruba land, and then the Yoruba like greeting. It's a conversation in my office that when you see another tribe and they see the other tribe bending down or greeting their bosses, it's like you are licking the ass of your boss, or you are seeking favor. I tell them vigorously that it is our culture to greet. So when you are in a working place, just greet. It's not to get the point that, like I said, I'm talking about China. They value their culture. They find, like somebody said in that place, they value their culture. There is nothing bad for Nigerians also to value their own culture. When you get to the north, you behave like the north. When you get to the west, you behave like the west. The west. And if we can understand that westernization should not override our own culture. So we will preach our own, and then the world we accept our own too.
All right. Thank you very much, Adebayo.
I like that angle. Unfortunately, when we finished school, we did not learn some of these things. When you had worked in several places, experience will now teach you that when you get to a place, you need to study what is obtainable, and just finishing school, NYSC, first you get a job, you are still feeling fly, like is it not my skill? You brought me here for what I can give, and all of that. But I remember a story. Working where you have to close late because your boss is closing late. So there are people who don't like to go home early. The person may be a boss. Maybe they are having issues in their home. The work is an outlet for them to relax till midnight. So I had that issue with a couple of friends who were working in big organizations where their boss will not close till very late, and if you dare go before your boss, you are insubordinate, right? So at some point, people started revolting, especially if you are going home to something lovable. I should be able to finish at so time and then go home. And so while I was working, the official closing time was 4 p.m. right? Then after that 4, you can now choose to stay back and do some other work, get your lessons ready for the next week and all of that. Your choice. Once you are done with your work for the day, you close. So I was given a class where I had to, I had little kids to take care of. Official closing time was 4. The person who had that class before it became my turn to own the class would stay till 7 p.m., 8 p.m. in the school. And then parents had a free day. They would do close from work, go about their business before coming to pick their little kids. So they were confident that she would be there. And she had her family in the school compound, had her kids in the school compound. They will eat in the classroom, do everything. So she's lounging. Me, I was young, a young girl. Mother. Not only a young mother, I was married. I was going home to go and meet my husband. In fact, once it's that 4, my mind has shut down. I'm done with my work for the day. I want to go home to go and get ready before God comes back. So immediately I closed the class that very first week when we started with the new children. I closed the class. I now took the children to late pickup room. There's a late pickup for parents who don't come early to pick their children. They reported me. That's why Obiajulu did not stay in class. They took me to the principal. Obiajulu did not stay in class. Normally, the former lady that was there used to stay till 6 to 7. And so the principal, that one, he agreed with me, but I knew they still use it to count against me later. The principal was like, when is our closing time? 4. You're a parent to a toddler. You should know that by 4, you come and pick up your child. Or your child will be in the late pickup room. This woman is not the other woman. She has closed her work. So she has to go. So we take some things, like you rightly said, for granted. We mess up the culture. Okay, because somebody now chooses to stay back and help you, you now make it as if it's the new law.
That's why, let me come to you, because that's where the West comes in. It's important for us to have those structures in place to protect people like you. I'll come to you in a minute. Let me take this call. Good morning, you're live. Ahmed.
Hello?
Yes, you're live. Go ahead, please.
Hello, good morning.
We can hear you clearly. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, TVC.
We can hear you.
Good morning, TVC.
Okay, obviously you can hear
you.
Tell her your thoughts. Because as much as I like to compare both areas, it's important for us to do the good and the bad.
Yes.
I remember when I got my first job from the university back in the US, it was an insurance company. I went to go and research. I've done my interviews. I got the job. I got excited. I was going to start on Monday. So I went online then to go and check and read about the insurance company, what they do. I was really excited to come and add my own quote. I'm a graduate, fresh graduate.
So fresh.
And as I just got into the office, they welcomed me and they gave me a book. So here is your Bible. I need you to study everything in it. This is exactly what you're going to be doing from the moment you enter here till you leave. Like, it was like clockwork. Wow. You come in at this time, you do this, you clock in. From this time to this time, you do this. I'm wondering, I had no opportunity to give my own innovative ideas. I couldn't contribute to the development because there was already a blueprint of everything. So we call it SOPs here, yes, but it was so detailed such that every single day, even the time you eat, how long you have to smell, to stand up to pee, was there. The time you have to pee, how many minutes you have to pee, because it's recorded in your clocking. Because when you're clocking to pee, you clock in. I went to pee. That pee time was not past 5 minutes. You pass 5 minutes, then they will know that they'll deduct from your phone salary. So it was so to the letter.
And this was here?
This was in America, in Jersey. It's an insurance company. I mean, it was my first job, so I had to learn it. But here, I can go and just talk with the Mariam table for like 5 minutes. Who's on my case? So the pros and cons of working both in Nigeria and abroad is different. But you've worked, and I mean, I like you to compare the experiences, the good, the bad.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with everyone on this table. I think there is a gross abuse of culture here. I love the fact that we infuse a bit of culture, because the truth is, even abroad, there is a cultural element. So what you mentioned about the Japanese people, there's something called small talk. And that's done in everywhere abroad as well. So in Canada, when you start a meeting, in Canada, typically, we start talking about the weather first. It's like everybody's like, oh, how's the weather? Well, yeah, what's it like in Calgary today? What's it like in Ontario? Because it's extremely cold. So that's kind of like your break the ice moment. So we start with that. In fact, if you join the meeting where you don't talk about your weekend or talk about the weather, it almost feels like it's hostile. So that is there. There's a place for that. I don't stop you on the hallway and say, how was your night? How was your husband? Do you get? There's a place for that maybe at the start of the meeting. When it comes to things like, it really breaks my heart when I hear things like this. You know, how you have to sort of do eye service. Yes. It's great to greet. Like, even abroad, people are cordial. But this one that you can't go home until your boss has gone, my goodness. Like, that's not... Your boss maybe is like, you know, more established.
Let me give you an
example. Like a house.
And
then you understand, then maybe you have stuff to do at home. Your family is waiting. Like, and I'm curious, do we not have labor laws? Good day, Labor Day, talk about this.
Strong labor laws, we do.
To protect workers, because this is almost like worker abuse. Let's be honest. It actually
we have the laws, it's not been implemented.
I
think I have a call.
This is a good...
Hey, I'll come to you, Mara. Thanks for calling. You're live. Oh, I lost that caller. Go ahead, Mary.
I remember when I used to work in the bank, I had an immediate boss, and he was so vile with his words. He was very disrespectful, you know. When he was being jovial, or you know, he would make some dirty jokes, you know, and then when he was trying to correct you, he would use some very hard, foul language. My God, I detested him. Wow. And I remember he talked to a particular person, he insulted her. She cried, and you know, he was walking around that place like the king of the bank at that time. I'm talking of immediate boss, so I'm not saying he was ED manager, nothing. Wow. And I remember like a few weeks after that, maybe a month, he now said something to me. I told him, I didn't say much, I just told him, I'm not this person. And that was the end for me. It was one query to the other. I just could not stand him. Yeah. Like I couldn't stand him. But I also knew that there was nothing I could do. Basically, yes, we had laws. Yes, we have labor laws, right? But how it works here in Nigeria is also you need to find people that like you, that will listen to them. That maybe, hopefully, there are more people that like you than like him. You know, so those are some of the things. So now that's the culture that you need to play. And that's why you find some people do the eye service. Yeah. Because for the eye service is for days like this. Like that. Where you meet up, when you have a problem with your boss, or, with someone who is higher placed than you. Yeah. So you'll be able to talk to a few people who is, okay, no, but she's a nice girl. Yeah. She greets me every time she comes in. In fact, she wants to go and buy this. Yeah. Every time she goes, she buys whatever for me. She goes to the market for me. She does not even wait. She come and ask me for the list. Please, are you going to, do you have a list for me to go to the market? They will love you because you do all these things outside work. Yeah. And then they're able to stand in for you. But if you just do your job and already your head, you're arrogant, you're prideful.
It's for free, they won't pay for it.
No.
Let me take Chioma. Chioma's been holding for a minute. Good morning, Chioma, you're live.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, good morning. I'm calling from Port Harcourt.
Yes. Don't listen to your TV. Listen to me directly. Go ahead, please.
I'm calling from Port Harcourt. Yeah, please, I just want to contribute on this working condition.
Yes.
In as much as we appreciate our culture, there are certain things we need to put in place, especially for the employers. They need to look at creating a healthy work environment for these employees.
Yes.
Like fostering culture of support, open communication, and work-life balance. Because we find out that in most of organizations, we don't have work-life balance. Work-life balance means it allows employees to feel valued in the organization, like recognition and appreciation. Yeah. We find out that most times these employees will work 150%. They are not being appreciated. So I think that employers need to look into that. It's more of we need to hello?
I can hear you. But I think I got your point, Chioma. See, I think I like where Chioma took us. Because as much as we like to infuse culture, the problem with culture doesn't consider fairness.
Yes.
Doesn't apply fairness. Because when you see culture structures in other parts of the world, you're thinking, why is it so it's not emotional, it doesn't understand. But it's true that it needs to be fair, and it must such that people know that, okay, if I work this amount of hours, I'll be judged based on what they ask. But here, it's about relationships.
Yes, what you just said, you know, so I like what you said about our culture and the consideration of fairness, because I find that really, really lacking. Our culture does not permit, because I'm a Yoruba girl, it doesn't really permit that two-way communication, two-way conversation. It's one way. My other person's talking to you, that's it. The other person's word is good, finished. You know, you take it, you can't necessarily give feedback. Abroad, one thing I find that stands out for me is you can give feedback. I can give my boss feedback. My boss is also allowed to give me feedback, but they give me feedback in something called the sandwich method. So you start with the good, then you put in something, the not so good, and then you end with the good. So it's like, oh, you know what, I think your work is great, but maybe consider doing this differently, and you would do better overall.
It's good for your mental health.
It is extremely good for your mental. But here, they call you in, they lambast you. As you are leaving, they're even adding more effort to you out.
Several times.
So as you're leaving the office, you are depressed.
I'm telling you.
But let me add
my own. What happened to me? Another
feedback.
thing that happened to me was I was just walking up and down the office. You know, they will say, okay, bring this file. You go and give something that you can sit down on your system and just do and just send the file, you know, and all. But you have to take the file physically to go and give. So you find yourself that you're sitting, standing up, going up and down here and there, you are everywhere, all around.
But I just also wanted to say a lot of Nigerians that work abroad, and when we talk to them, they seem to have, and I don't know if it's because they're just away from home, but they seem to talk about a loneliness that they feel when they work abroad. Like there's no sense of community, you know, you clock in, you clock out. People don't really communicate or really want to know you. If they ask, how are you, that's all, it's just being polite. They don't really want to know how you are. But here, in fact, some people will tell you, people will tell you their best friends are their workmates. You know, they have family events, their work people come for their family events and they represent.
That might be true in some situations, but not all. Because what I find is, human beings, we're creatures of habit, right? And so what happens here is not very different from what happens abroad. It's just the way it happens. So they find ways to insert themselves in your lives. In fact, if you work with somebody, you will end up knowing the name of their dog, their cat, you know, their children, what schools they're like. They tell you so much, but it's not necessarily within work hours or within the work environment, right? We have things like, you know, team meetups. You have like, you know, you have like play dates and stuff like that. In fact, what I found is a lot of times you're even somewhat appraised more on your attitude, charisma, and behavior outside work than you are at work. So like they would invite you and say, hey, you know, let's go hang out today. We're having like a team bonding thing. Let's go to an escape room, for instance. Never did that here, you know. So it's an escape room. So everybody, MD, CEO, you guys are all there trying to play games, you know. You're having drinks. And so at those meetings, you get to really know about people. You get to know people, you know what they like, blah, blah, blah. They're just not doing it like in the office, you know, in the office. So yeah, there's ways people bond.
Let me take Alfonso. Thanks for calling. You're live. Good morning, Alfonso.
Alfonso.
Hey.
Oh, sorry, so I have a friend in the UK currently, and I remember her last year birthday. It was planned by her white co-workers. They went, they spent money, took her out, spent money on her and everything. And she was like, she was really shocked. And even when she got sick, they were always coming home to check on her and all of that. So I know that they have their own ways, but their work time is their work time. You know, the problem we have here is that we are not paid per hour.
Yes.
So that's also one thing we have to start looking into. You are paid in a month to work a whole day. Like maybe 9 to 5, which extends to 8 or 10, you know, we're not really paid for overtime. Any extra hour you're adding, there's an extra amount that comes to it. Any extra idea you're bringing, there's a conversation you're having with your management on a sort of royalty or a sort of payment that comes with that. But here, once they employ you, they've employed your life. They can call you up at any time to come and show up for work with no extra. In fact, when you start raising your voice to say, you people should at least pay me extra, it becomes a problem. You are a rebel. So you don't like this work. You are showing that you are, because we are now trying to make you feel you have grown.
But there's a flip side.
Let me go on a short break.
There's a flip side, okay.
We'll come to this conversation. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.